Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. I am Adel, a lead occupational therapist um, at Intercare. Tonight is a conversation, not a lecture. It's about your child's therapy and journey, and most importantly, how we continue it together. I'm joined here by my colleagues who will also introduce themselves now.
Hello, my name is Marah. I'm also a lead occupational therapist here in Intercare. Um, I'm pursuing my master's in neuroscience and psychology and mental health. I'm a certified sensory integration therapist and a basic floor time provider. And we're so pleased to be here to help you all.
Hi, my name is Aisha Ghalib. I am one of the lead speech and language therapists here in Intercare. I am specialized in literacy difficulties and speech sound disorders. So I'm here to help with any doubts that you have. Hope to see a lot of parents asking many more questions. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Nur Arian. I'm a speech and language therapist with 6 years of experience working with children. I'm really looking forward for today's discussion, answering your questions, and providing evidence-based strategies that you can use at home.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm Catherine Sahayam. I'm one of the lead speech and language therapists from Intercare, and I'm here to answer all your questions and give you suggestions and strategies to work with your kids at home. I have an experience of nearly more than a decade, so I hope I am here to answer all your questions and hope it would be helpful.
Thank you all so much. Before we present anything, we want to hear from you. If there is any questions that you prepared before coming into our this meeting, this is your time. Any questions about your child's therapy, what happens in the session, or how to help at home? Who would like to start? Is there any questions for the parents who joined us? Is there anything in the chat?
No.
If you'd like to put in your questions in English or in Arabic in the chat,
Adel,
تقدر تسألوا أسئلة.
there's
Yes.
one question in the chat.
Yes.
The mom says, sorry, I'm still at work, but if you can see my message, how can we help our kids at home, especially at home?
Who would like to start? This is a very wide scaled question.
I can go in this question. So, what is really important for kids at home, especially in breaks, summer breaks, winter breaks, is the routine. It is really important to maintain the routine that we have, or any similar routine that you can manage during your break as much as possible. Bedtime routine, morning routine, lunch and meals timings. This structure will help your kid to be regulated and stay regulated through the day, adding as much as physical exercise as you can through your day, either going out to parks, any physical activities, swimming, any activity that you can involve your kid in. If this is hard on you, you can do any physical activities at home. You can play together with balls, any rough play, wrestling, even if you would like to engage the brothers and sisters in some board games, group games, any interaction and play-based interaction with the kids at home would be amazing.
So, from a speech and language point of view, I totally agree with whatever Mara said. We'll have to fix schedules and routines during the summer or during the break time. But when you look into a speech and language point of view, maybe we can also try to utilize visual scheduling. So we know what is going to happen next, what comes after, where we're going to go. So it will help your child to make kids to be more regulated and focused. And they'll also be more excited, looking forward, oh, this is the next activity which we're going to do. So this will also help them to be mostly regulated and excited. Both goes hand in hand, and which will also help you to be, peacefully scheduling them. So that would be one of my suggestions.
I think we will talk about more about this topic in general. But for now, is there anything specific that you want to ask us about? Is there anything specific about your child that you face at home or at the playground or at school, and you want to ask us about it?
So we have another question in the chat. What do we do when they don't have skills for doing bigger projects? The child is in high school. It depends actually on the actual skills that we're talking about, because doing a big project, especially for kids in high school, needs and requires many skills, especially executive functioning skills, or what we can call higher cognitive skills, from attention, planning, organization, time management. So what will help depends on what skill we have a difficulty in. If it's in initiation the task, what can help is having a schedule, either written or a visual schedule for your kid, that he can follow and read to, like it would have a simple steps for him to follow, so they can do the project. If it's in time management, we can keep timers or anything that would help them manage their time and look into the time. If they find it hard to plan the actual project or activity, what we can do is to sit together with the kid before we start doing the project, think with them, help them think and organize their thoughts. What materials do we need? How what steps do we need to follow? How should we organize and put these steps in order? We can have all these written, and then the child can follow these steps independently too, and we can monitor their progress and their work. These skills actually are learned, so we need to help them practice and learn these skills so they can independently implement them in their life.
If I can add to this, is that since these things are learned, just like Marah just said, the first thing we need to start on is to teach them how to plan their task, how to plan ahead what they're gonna do, how to put in steps or put on a timetable or a schedule for this is what I want to achieve, this is what I want to do, this is where I'm gonna start, this is where I'm gonna end, and then divide the task into sections.
Yeah, always dividing the task into simpler and smaller steps. Yeah, help. Yeah, thank you, Adel.
From a speech and language therapist point of view, I would like to add that when you are giving him or her instructions, chunk the instructions into the form which he understands. For example, not all the kids can understand a 4-keyword instruction or a 5-keyword instruction. So you need to understand what level he can understand it, and then give the instructions according to that. Give them breaks, chunk the activity into smaller portion, and don't let them do everything in one stretch. Another thing would be setting a timetable, for example, a timeline. So imagine the project is timed for like a month later, and then you start help him to plan it backwards. So what are the things that I can do? What is the number of hours that I can put into this particular subject? So it's like even for us as adults, I'm doing my dissertation. So what I needed to do was chunk my time for each and every part of the project. This helps no matter who it is, even if you're like 50 years old. This really helps. So another suggestion I would do is, I'm not sure if you know, if you're familiar with a concept of mind map. So there is this thing called, you can it's like basically organizing the ideas. So as OT, you must be knowing that like OTs would agree that it is so important for a child to have these organization skills. Only then they can work towards a bigger project. So mind map really helps visualize. So it's like color coded and things like that. If you want, I can send you a picture, or you can even Google it, how it works. Doing a mind map really helps, and along with that, these timetables and schedules, and making the project really smaller, not doing it in a stretch. So this would be my advice.
This is very helpful. Thank you so much, Aisha. Do we have any more questions? Feel free to open your mics. All right, let's take a small break from the questions. Let's talk a little bit about the progress and the importance of continuing therapy. Maybe a question will pop in your head. So I want to start with the single biggest thing we get asked. Is my child actually making progress? And the honest answer is that progress in therapy is almost never a straight line. It comes in steps, then plateaus, and then sometimes sudden leaps that seems that came out of nowhere. A few weeks without progress does not mean nothing is happening. Usually the brain is consolidating in the background before the next jump. Okay. Um, So yeah, sometimes a sudden leap that seems that came out of nowhere, that usually the brain is processing in the background before the next jump. The second thing I want you to hear is that therapy isn't a switch we flip for 45 minutes a week or maybe an hour a week. Your child spends far more hours with you at home than with us, and what happens between the sessions also matters just as much as the session itself, maybe even more. You and the clinic and us therapists aren't separate things. We're one team working towards exactly the same goals for your child. So let me explain how therapy changes the brain um, from the physical side. um, 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 I need to talk about how the importance of the time between session, how much it matters, and because it isn't just one, it's not our opinion, it's how the brain physically works. There is a well-established set of neuroplasticity, the way that the brain evolves, and those neuroplasticity have the principles set out to be the guides to what we do. The core idea is that the skills are wired in through repetition. Every time your child practices something, the brain strengthens its specific pathways. Use it and improve it, which is the exact opposite of use it or lose it. Pathways we stop using gradually weaken. The pathways that we stop using, actually we lose. So two more things are worth knowing. The first thing, The practice has to be meaningful and motivating before the brain bothers to change, which is exactly why we work through play, not teaching. We don't work through teaching and drills. We always work through play, and we always support play therapy. So the second thing, younger brains are especially plastic. They are more able to develop. They are more able to learn. So the childhood is where the window, where the change, the actual change actually happens. So think of the weekly sessions as planting the seed, and the practice you do through the week and at home or at school is the water and sunlight that actually makes it grow. Consistency. When we talk about consistency, this is what we really mean when we talk and go on about consistency. From the same neuroscience, two principles stand out. Repetition matters, as we just explained before, and intensity also matters. The brain needs enough well-timed practice, often enough before a skill becomes permanent. So attendance is the floor, not the ceiling. Turning up to sessions is the minimum. That multiplies it is the carryover you do at home in small doses. I also want to be honest about the other side of that. The long gaps or a run of cancellations, a 2 month break like summer break slows the momentum down. And because of the use it or lose it principle we talked about, they can quietly undo the progress your child has already made. That's not to make anyone feel guilty. Life happens, and we all know that sometimes it's a little bit difficult and challenging to maintain the therapy, but it's just so you all understand why we push for regular, little and often practice. Specific, repeated, well-timed effort is genuinely what drives lasting changes in the brain. And this is why we push also to the consistency with the therapy and to avoid the long gaps. Okay, now we will talk a little bit about the times when progress feels slow, because it happens with every child at this point. And I don't want anyone leaving here blaming themselves or their child. In our experience, it usually comes down to a handful of things. Sometimes it's the inconsistent attendance or very little practice between sessions, but sometimes there are other factors that affecting your child, like poor sleep, poor nutrition, or underlying medical issues, unmet sensory needs, or difficulties with attention. All of these will hold progress back until they're addressed. Sometimes it's about expectations and timelines. Real change is often slower than any of us would like for it to be. So um, sometimes the goal itself is simply like we need to adjust the goals. So we need to also work on our expectations. Everyone here would like to see a huge let's say progression, and we also want to see fast progression, but sometimes this is not the case. The key message here is that a plateau phase or a period of time without improvement is not a failure. It's information. It's a signal for us to look again, to investigate together and adjust the plan. So how do we actually overcome the plateau phase? As a genuine partnership between us and the parents, and I want to be specific about who does what. Our job is to assess, set clear goals, deliver evidence-based therapy, and review progress regularly. Your job as a parent is to attend consistently, insert practice into everyday routines, and tell us what you're seeing at home, because you notice things we never will, because you spend also a lot of time with the child. Together, we can keep communicating openly and adjust the plan the moment progress slows. This isn't just like a nice idea that we need to work on. All research and evidence looks at what actually work in therapy, and the approaches with the strongest evidence were the practical, goal-directed, real-life ones that actively involve the family rather than skills practiced only in therapy rooms. In other words, your involvement isn't optional or something extra. The evidence says it's one of the biggest advantages we have. In the end, if you forgot everything else I've just said, I want you to leave with only just three things. They're all things only you can do. Attend consistently, practice a little every single day, in the small moments, not in long sessions, and talk to us early. The moment something changes or something worries you, don't wait for the next review. That's it. It's just the small, steady steps from all of us that um, those small steps added together across a week, maybe a month, maybe a year, are what turn into your child's biggest gains. So, with that, let's open the floor also for if we have more questions. Let's see if we can give you any answers, if something popped in your head.
Hello, all. I have a question.
Yes, hi.
What happens if a child is insisting or being stubborn on something? Let's say, for example, to watch TV or phone, because screen time is also important, right? And your personal space as a parent is also important. That you cannot have 100% attention all the time. So you want to child to have some alone time, but as well it should be healthy. But for me, screen time is not the option. If not the one, what else do you have?
All right. If yes, yes, Catherine.
Um, this is an interesting question, actually. So this in current scenario, I wouldn't suggest you to restrict screen time because we all are always with the screen. We have work on the screen. We do have tasks on the screen, be it a laptop or a phone or a tab or whatever it is. So I wouldn't say you just have to abruptly stop using screens and you say no screen time. You cannot watch TV or you cannot watch anything on the phone, and it's gonna fire back. So it's gonna fire back for your side, which is gonna lead to more behavior challenges and tantrums. So I would always suggest you to keep the screen time more contentful. So the child is supposed to sit in front of the screen and watch maybe like a 20 minutes of a show which she or he is interested in. I would suggest you to join the show and ask questions about it, talk about it. So there is no like one-way communication happening. So you as a parent, you're gonna sit with your child and talk about things that are happening in front of you. So it's going to be a two-way communication, like you are talking to your child, asking questions. Oh, look at that. That elephant is blue in color, or do we have an elephant at home? So you're gonna compare things. So which in turn is gonna help you. I mean, which is gonna help your child to improve his language development. So I would say there is no rule that no screen time at all, but I'm sure there are some parents who follow very strict rules with screens. According to the WHO, we have certain rules. Like below 2 years of age, we are not supposed to give screen time at all. But above 2 years, you can give like 30 minutes a day or to an hour. And then when you follow these guidelines, I'm sure you can set a criteria where it suits you and your child to be more convenient during screen time. I hope this is helpful.
It
I
does.
also wanted
Thanks. Thanks. Sorry.
I
Sorry.
wanted to
Yeah.
add also something that sorry. If we can make screen time functional instead of the kid just sitting watching screen, we can give them videos where they have to imitate what they're like dances or exercises that they can imitate, so they would be moving while watching the screen, which can help. They're having some screen time. We're not taking it all away, but in the same time, they are moving in a functional way, getting some of the energy out, doing some exercise. And also, what can help whenever we're giving the kid a screen, if we have to, is to be mindful of the things that the kids are watching. For example, something that not too fast, not colorful, not overstimulating for the kids. So to make sure that we're, even when they are watching screen, we're being mindful of how these things they are watching are affecting their brains.
Thanks, Mara and Catherine. I have a follow-up question, so don't mind me. What happens to the situation where you want to feed your child and she does not want to, or she or he does not want to eat, but she insists that if I want to watch a TV, then I will eat. And in those situations, it's always tricky, right? Should you be a controllable parent and say, do whatever you want just because she's gonna eat? Or you will be naive no, or you will give your negative comments to the child and make sure that she learns a lesson.
So adding to that, I would say like you are the model for your child. So whatever you do, your child's gonna imitate or copy. So what I would say is, you know, absolutely there's no screen time during meals according to the guidelines and the evidences. If the child's being given food or fed during screen times, there's no focus on the food. The food is just gonna go inside like getting a juice done. So you put the fruits inside and get it switch on your mixer and then the juice is ready. So that's how the child will be given food if your screen is on in front. So what we can do some modifications where you take your meal time in a different room, shift your focus. So try to feed while you're cooking. You can still feed your child, or while you're maybe in a different situation or a different atmospheric setting, would also give your child to redirect from the screen. So that would be a more helpful option. So absolutely, there is no screen time during meals. This is what we usually advise our parents.
I would like to add a comment regarding this. So yes, it's not advised to have screen time during meals, but what we can work on as a start is trying to reduce at least one meal per day without a screen. So we get to like get the child get used to eating without screen time. We need to prepare a calm environment for the child where he is focused on the food instead of focusing on distractions and toys. And we can talk about food, make it seem more interesting, and let the child decide how much food he wants to eat for that meal. So we can't just remove the screen right away from the child, but what we can do is reduce the meals that the child uses a screen while he's eating.
Thanks for the insights. Yeah, it helps.
Do we have any more questions? Is there any questions in the chat?
Nothing in the chat yet.
Okay, we can now move on to frequently occurring scenarios that we always we have prepared those scenarios to help us understand a few things that we might face in the playground or in school or at home. Things of the most common asked questions that we usually receive as therapists. So, and the first question we will start with speech and language therapy. Does learning two languages cause a speech delay? So, do you want me to read it or you want to read it, guys?
I can read it.
All right.
So, Sarah is a 3-year-old child and is exposed to Arabic at home and English at nursery. She uses some Arabic words, some English words, and occasionally mixes both the languages in some sentences. Her parents are worried that learning two languages is causing speech delay and are considering stopping one language. So the question here is bilingualism causing my child's speech delay? Bilingual means two languages. The people who are learning two languages or speaking two languages. So my answer to this question is, so according to research, there is no research study says that learning two languages simultaneously is going to cause speech and language delay or difficulties. But while your child is being exposed to two different languages, say Arabic and English, their vocabulary gets distributed evenly in both the languages. So for you, when you see from a spectaculator point of view, you might feel that the child only has, oh, these many words, very limited words in Arabic, very limited words in English. But when you put them together and you look at the wholesome point of view, it would be really more than a typically developing monolingual child whose vocabulary is going to be more than the child who speaks only one language. Because you're going to count all the number of words that he speaks in Arabic and all the number of words that he speaks in English. So while he is learning or speaking two languages, they tend to have mixing, they tend to mix two words, Arabic and English, English and Arabic. So this is considered as a normal developmental phenomena, and it shouldn't be considered as, oh, child is confused. And if you feel that Sarah, this child, is having difficulties in speech and language, it will occur in both the languages. It will not, learning two languages or speaking in two languages is not going to cause a delay or a difficulty. But you need to always go to your nearest speech and language therapist to, figure it out or rule out any underlying speech and language difficulties. So, so what we would suggest as speech and language specialists, parents should always communicate to their child in their most convenient and comfortable language. So you'll have to give them a richer language for them to develop the language instead of limiting the exposure. As I said before, you are your children's role model. So you'll have to model the language. The more you talk to them, the more repeatedly they're going to hear the words and phrases. They're going to get their understanding better, and they're going to also apply them while talking, which is going to help them be proficient in that particular language. So exposure here matters a lot. So the more the exposure, the more the child will become more confident in that particular language. So the key point here is your child will pick the language which is intentionally communicated to them. So if a child is listening to French at the background, he's not going to pick the French language. He should be given the attention when the language is communicated intentionally and with the content naturally directed to the child, then the child is going to pick that language. If that just because the language is going at the background doesn't mean that child's going to pick up that language. So this is the key point.
Thank you so much, Catherine. This was very helpful and a very detailed answer. Our guests, parents, if you have any questions, just at any time and ask your question. Your questions are far more important now. Until then, we're going to move on to the next question. It's from the Occupational Therapy Department. Big feelings hard to settle. So, Layla, 4-year-old, at home, she goes from laughing to screaming in seconds. This is something we get asked about a lot. At the supermarket, she covers her ears and runs, and at bedtime, she bounces off the walls. We don't know if she's overstimulated, understimulated, or just being difficult. How do we help her regulate? So, when we talk about a question and we see the words overstimulated or understimulated, these are the terms that mostly all the parents usually know and use, or just being difficult, also something very common. So the key message in this question is regulation. It's not about being difficult. Young children cannot yet manage big feelings alone. They borrow our calm selves and then use it to co-regulate, then gradually build their own self-regulation. So we need to help them to co-regulate. So what's happening here is that Layla's swings between over arousal, maybe like she was at the supermarket, or too much noise, or too much light. So we're talking here about sensory dysregulation. So we need to, or at the bedtime, the bouncing, looking for the input to organize herself. What can we help here is that we need to teach her how to co-regulate first. We need a calm voice, the presence of a lower, like our presence with a calm voice will lower her stimulation and arousal before any, let's say, teaching or trying to tell her to stop. So we need to trigger a pattern. Let's say a simple sensory inputs that we can implement in her daily, let's say, activities. We need to build a predictable routine with small, let's say, sensory things that we need to add. But there is something very important that we cannot always look at these things as sensory. So we know that the most common thing that the parents always think about is sensory, understimulated or overstimulated. And this is correct. This is not wrong. But we need to look at other things that may cause this, which we have emotional regulation, or maybe transitioning between tasks, or maybe rigidity or flexibility. So this is the main message that we wanted to show with this particular scenario, is that we need to help her regulate, not just sensory regulation. So we need to talk about her emotional regulation. We need to talk about her transitioning between, let's say, two settings. Maybe she's bouncing at bedtime because her brain is still fixated on the task that she was doing before the bedtime. So here we're talking about transitioning. Maybe we're talking about rigidity or lower flexibility rates. This is what I have. Marah, can you add?
Yeah, if I might add something, that whenever also we're looking or talking about sensory input or sensory regulation, we always have to keep in mind that it's not a diet. It's not something that I give with in a certain times for a certain period of time in a certain repetition. It always depends on the child status, on our observation. How is my kid doing now? How does he feel? What does his body and his brain needs? And we can arrange what we're gonna how we're gonna help him, which input should we give him according to all these inputs together. So we can't set a sensory schedule and say, okay, I will follow this in the morning, this in the afternoon, and this in the night. We need to be more mindful about how we're going to give this input to our kids.
Okay, thank you so much, Marah. Next question. This is also a question from the occupational therapy. Marah, can you read?
Sure. So we have our next question about flexibility and transitions. It's stuck when it's time to switch. So we have Umar, he's 6. He plays with Lego beautifully for an hour, but the second we say time to eat or we're leaving, he refuses, cries, sometimes hits. We need the exact same morning routine or the whole day falls apart. Is it autism, anxiety, and how do we help him handle this challenge? So whenever we face such difficulties or issues in flexibility and transitioning, the main thing that we can help our kids with is help them anticipate and know what's going next. So it always helps to have a routine for the kids. If there's a changes in the routine, it's really helpful to let the kid know since the morning that this is how our day would go. This is what we're going to do. If we're doing an activity and we're going to move to the next activity, or we're going out eating, or it's a screen time and now it's done, we need to move to the next thing we have to do. To help the kids, we need to inform them prior to the time. We can have a visual timer next to the kid, tell them, okay, now you have 5 or 10 minutes left. Once the timer rings, we're gonna clean up or finish this task so we can move to the next. But also, when we have a timer, to make sure that the kid understands and see the timer and process that the time now is done, it will help for us to let him turn off the timer once it rings. So his brain would process that, okay, now the timer has rang. I heard the timer, I saw the timer finished, I closed it, and now it's easier to move. At the beginning, we might face some difficulties. The kid might start crying. It's fine, but in this we might also talk about this more later, but in this situation, we need to make sure that the child understand that this is done now. We need to move the other one, but after we make sure that we prepared him properly. But is this autism? No, it not necessarily needs to be autism. Rigidity is a sign that we see with many kids in many disorders, many difficulties. It doesn't necessarily mean that my child is autistic. Is it anxiety? Yeah, it could be. This is why we need, as Adel said before, we need to be very mindful and I keep our eyes open. If my kid is anxious, is he overwhelmed? How can I help him regulate and understand his emotions? How can I help him deal with his anxiety if he's having any anxiety?
So yeah, if I can add to this, to what Marah said, this is why these two questions were right after each other, because when you look at the two scenarios, and you might think that you might find all of these triggers or all of these, let's say, scenarios happening with the same child. So the way that we need to think about is a holistic approach, that we need to look at the child as um, we need to look at the child's behaviors as a whole. We need to look at everything, every little detail about the child's behavior, and let's decide which one is the right approach for us to handle the situation. So just like Marah said, flexibility or rigidity or the transitioning difficulties. So it's not necessarily to be labeled as a specific diagnosis. It doesn't have to be autism. It doesn't have to be ADHD. It doesn't have to be like any other diagnosis. We might find a very typical child with anxiety, and a very typical child with transitioning difficulties or rigidity or um, sensory, let's say, dysregulation or even emotional regulation. So this is why these two questions, these two scenarios are linked highly. That we need, and the message from both of them is that we need to look at at the child as a whole and find the underlying cause of what's going on. All right, the next question is there any questions in the chat?
Yeah, there is a question. Okay, so you mentioned that wrestling can be good for kids, but my son really doesn't handle losing well. He sometimes end up crying and throwing a tantrum because of that. I usually tell his dad not to wrestle with him, and I let my son know that we can talk about it once he calms down. Do you think that this is okay, or could I affect him negatively later on? So the way you're handling it, especially that you let him calm and talk about it later with him, it really helps. Talking about his emotions and make him understand the situation that happened helps a lot. but actually the kids need more of these experiences, um, because eventually in life he would be playing with other kids in the playground, in the school, with his friends, in any play date he might lose. So what we need to work more on that, to help him understand that it's okay to lose. We are playing to have fun, not to win. It's nice to be competitive, but if the kid would be this stressed out because he doesn't want to lose, he won't be having fun. So, talking about also that losing is fine and we're playing to have fun really helps. It's fine, you will have some tantrums at the beginning, but also it's about how we deal with this tantrum. Um, it's okay that you can tell him that it's okay that you lost. I know it feels hard, and I know that you are sad, and it's okay to be sad. But for example, ruining the game or crying and screaming, it's not something acceptable from you to do when you lose. Um, you can also, if he's playing with his dad, you can let his dad make him win sometimes, and then maybe like the first time he will win and then the second time he will lose, and now we have like he won once and lost once, so it's a tie, we both won during this game. So you can because we adults can manage this situation, we can go around this situation to prepare our kids whenever they go out in life and play with other kids, to be able to manage all these feelings and all these things with other kids.
I would like to add, whatever Mara said works fantastic because you're going to show and talk through your kid. But I would also suggest if you can use some books. There are so many books in the market which talks about big feelings, and which while reading it, while you're having your bedtime, you can just use one of these big feeling books. So children, there are so many different feelings, and we need to help them name them how they feel, which is going to also, emotionally stabilize them, which is going to help them build their emotional, get out of the emotional anxiety zone. So I would suggest you to use some books to also help them learn about winning and losing.
I would like to add something as well, something I use personally in my therapy sessions. As you mentioned, this is a very common behavior that occurs with many children. What I usually do while playing competitive games with kids is sometimes I lose myself. And when I lose myself, I model what's the appropriate behavior to react to losing. So, for example, I lose and I'm like, oh no, I'm feeling sad. I lost, but it's okay. I can always try again. Take a deep breath. Okay, now I'm ready to try again. It's fine to lose. So model the behavior that you are expecting your child to do or to copy when they lose themselves. This is really helpful and really helps with a lot of kids to just model in front of them how you expect them to react when they lose. And with time, they will eventually improve with the tantrums.
I just want to say something small about this, which agrees with all what Noor and Catherine and Marah said. This not accepting losing while playing a game is one type of the emotional dysregulation, and it's also a type of rigidity. So all this is the point that we're trying to get to is that we need to look at the child. Why is he having this behavior? We need to look at the underlying cause of this behavior. Why is he throwing a tantrum when he loses? I know we just gave you the let's say how to deal with the situation, but you also need to look at why is he started doing this behavior in the beginning. So yeah. Do we have any other questions? Any questions in the chat?
No.
Okay, we'll move on now. We have a question from the speech and language therapy department.
So this is a very common question that we get. So the parent might say, after a screening, they might say, my child actually understands everything I say, so I don't think speech therapy is necessary. They will eventually talk when they are ready. And they will, they really don't know how important, they're not really aware of how important early intervention is in this case. So, there are some scenarios where the child may outgrow the delay, the expressive language delay. However, we really can't predict which of these children will outgrow them. Now, even in when you see the communication pyramid, there are skills that, like, for example, attention, concentration, social skills, understanding, receptive language, expressive language. It doesn't mean that one happens after the other. It is supposed to actually support each other in language building. So, what happens when you wait? Now, in this scenario, I'm sure, like, whenever the parent comes to us, the child is already somewhere around 2.5, 3 years old. Now, this is a big gap for expressive language delay to catch up. And the coming year, the child is supposed to be going to school. And now you yourself as a parent can quantify what is, like, can I actually predict that a 2 year or 3 year delay can be made up in a year? So this kind of prediction is really impossible for even as speech and language therapist to tell, okay, maybe he'll catch up. So this is a dangerous water to be in. So the best advice is to start therapy as soon as possible. And if with the therapy or naturally, like, both the scenarios can help the child in developing their language normally, but what will happen? What is there to lose if you start therapy early? You wouldn't lose a year again waiting. So this is a very common question. Just because some of the skills are there, it doesn't necessarily mean that the other skills will also come up naturally. Though it happens, it is pretty unpredictable.
Thank you so much, Aisha. This is a very detailed answer. We're gonna have one more question before we end this meeting. And just because one of the questions the parents asked were about including a tantrum or a meltdown. So we have prepared a scenario where how to differentiate, or is it a tantrum or a meltdown? So we have Ahmed, who is 7. Sometimes he has tantrums when he doesn't get what he wants. Those we can manage. Other times he completely shuts down or explodes for no clear reason, and nothing helps until he calms on his own. Are these the same things? And how do we tell them apart? And what do we do in each case? So we need to identify a tantrum or a meltdown. Is it a tantrum or is it a meltdown? So a tantrum, it's something when the child starts, let's say screaming, or in the supermarket, or he wants something. This is the key point, that the child, he wants something. This is why the behavior showed up. This is why he's focusing on to getting what he wants. So in this scenario, in the tantrum scenario, we just need to giving him small instructions. We shouldn't go in and try to calm him immediately. No, we just give him small messages that I cannot talk to you while you're doing this. I need you to stop screaming. I need you to talk to me. Tell me how you're feeling, and give him some space, and then leave him. And then you will see that he will get up and he will come to you, and then he will try to learn, and he will learn with time how to express their feelings. A meltdown is a little different. This is the other like the other scenario where he completely shuts down or explodes for no clear reason. You don't know what's going on. In this scenario, you need to think about the child is overwhelmed. Is it a stress response? Because the body, when there is a stress response, it goes into the fight, flight, or freeze situation, and the child loses control. So it's not manipulation. It cannot be taught in the moment. So we need to blend the let's say where this meltdown peaks, and then try to comfort the child immediately. Let's differentiate the between the tantrum and the meltdown. The meltdown, we can't leave the child to face it by himself. We need to teach him. We need to be there for him. We need to make him feel safe, because we don't know why is he doing. Why did he have this meltdown? But on the tantrum, we do know why this behavior came. So in a tantrum, again, we stay calm, we hold the boundary, we give attention for calm behavior. We do not negotiate the want. We never negotiate the want. We just talk about that we need to teach the child how to express their emotions and how to ask, let's say, ask nicely, or ask for what they want and communicate what they want. In the meltdown, we need to reduce the demands and the sensory load. We need to keep him safe, offer the co-regulation, offer the regulation from ourselves. We talk to him in a calm voice. We try to show him that if the meltdown happened for after a certain event, let's try to tell him that it's safe. It's you're with me, and we only teach him in the meltdown situation. We only teach him how to deal after a certain event, after the recovery from the meltdown.
And Adel, if I can add also something really important that we need to keep in mind, that if we didn't deal with the tantrum in a proper way, it could turn into a meltdown. So whenever we have a tantrum, we need to know how to deal with the tantrum in a proper way to help the child regulate and calm again before it turns into a meltdown, because once it turns into meltdown, it will be harder for us and for the child to re-regulate again. Another thing that also could help with the during a meltdown is actually proprioception input, squeezes, hugs, squishes, anything that can help the body regulate. Because in the meltdown, the brain, as Adel said, the child brain will just freeze. It will stop and zone out. So any talking, anything that we might do won't help the kid. And in both tantrums and meltdowns, doing less is more actually. Just being there for the kid. And if it's a tantrum, we need, as Ada said, to be very strict, very straightforward with what we are offering for the kid. And in a meltdown, we need to show the kid that, or actually in both, we need to show the kid that we are here to help you. We are here to listen for you. And we understand how you're feeling. But in a tantrum, he needs to rationalize what's going on and come back to us, where in a meltdown we need to help him, help his body and his brain to calm down again. A very common scenario that we see with many kids is that you might be picking your kid up from school, going home. He would have a great day at school, or the teachers are happy from how he's doing at school. But once he gets in the car, your kid might start screaming or crying or having a meltdown. This is a sign that he might be pushing himself too much at school to please everyone and to be as he should be. But once he goes to his comfort zone, which is his mom, his dad, and his family, he will go into a meltdown. So also sometimes having a meltdown shows you that you're the comfort space for your kid, where he is able to show all his emotion and not masking these emotion like he's doing, for example, at school or when he's going out. So we need to be there for the kids, listen to them, help them regulate and understand their emotions in such situations.
Okay. Thank you so much, Marah. Do we have any more questions in the chat?
No, nothing in the chat.
Okay, we're gonna do one more question from the speech therapy department. This one.
Okay, so this is a very common question. What can I do at home to support my child's speech and language development? So I just want you to know that the parents are the most important factor when it comes to a child's development. And we don't really need any specific tools or specific equipment to teach language at home. So the strategies that I'm going to talk about today can be used in daily routines in a natural setting. So we're going to start with the first strategy, which is going to be reading books together every day. Why does reading books help a child develop language? Simply because we can look at pictures, we can look at characters, describe them, and talk about the events that are happening in a story, which allows the child to get exposed to new vocabulary and new sentence structures. While reading a book with a child, what you can do is pause and ask the child some simple questions and encourage them to communicate and participate as well. The next strategy I would like to talk about is narrating your daily activities. So when I talk about narrating daily activities, it's actually divided into two parts. The first part is going to be self-talk technique, and the second part is going to be the parallel talk technique. So self-talk technique basically is just describing what you're doing to your child. So for example, you're cooking. So while you're cooking, you can just talk about what you're doing while you're cooking. So like I'm cutting some vegetables, I'm washing them with the water, or I'm taking something out of the fridge, I'm putting something in the fridge. This all exposes the child to like a various number of new words and new language structure. But parallel talk, we talk about what the child is doing. So for example, if the child is playing with a car, I'd be like, oh, look, you're playing with a car. It's a green car. You're wearing your shoes. You're washing your hands. You're brushing your teeth. So you describe what the child is doing basically. This is a very helpful strategy to use, and it happens really naturally, and you can do it and incorporate it into daily activities, so it doesn't need any equipment, it doesn't need any tools or any toys. Okay, so the next question or the next strategy we're going to use is give some instructions to your child. So how are we going to give instructions? We're not going to start right away with complex instructions. What we're going to do is we're going to start with very simple instructions and then gradually increase the complexity of the instructions. So at first, like I will tell the child, get your shoes. And when he gets his shoes, I'll tell him, put your shoes on. And then when the child can achieve those single step instructions, what I would do is move to a two-step instruction. So I'll tell him, get your shoes and put them on in the same time. If the child has difficulty with following single instructions, what we can do is also use some visual cues or gestures like pointing at things so that he understands what we are talking about more. Another thing I want to talk about is modeling. So modeling language in front of your child. A lot of parents ask me, is it okay to correct my child's speech or to correct my child's language? Instead of focusing on testing your child and correcting his speech all the time, what I personally would recommend is that you model the right language structure or the right word in front of him instead. So let's say a child says something wrong, like he says, he goed out yesterday. I'll say, oh, yes, he went out yesterday, instead of cutting him off when he's talking and telling him good is wrong and it's went. So instead of doing that, I just naturally, indirectly correct his speech by modeling what is the right way to produce this sentence or say this sentence. So this is a very helpful way. It also reduces the demands and stress of the child. We want to try our best to encourage the child to talk, not constantly cutting him off and correcting his speech so he doesn't become hesitant when it comes to using his language skills or his words. Another thing we can work on is expansion. So what do I mean by expansion? Let's say, for example, my child says the word dog. And then I will look at him and say, oh, yes, that's a brown dog. The dog is running, for example. Instead of just limiting it to the word dog, we added new words and new information to the word that he just said. This really helps with the child increasing the amount of words he says in a sentence, and he learns also new words, new adjectives, new verbs when you add to his speech. Another thing I want to talk about is limiting passive screen time. So we talked about this earlier, but I would like to repeat this point. Passive screen time is not a two-way interaction. So we need to always focus on real communication and real-time interaction with adults, face-to-face interaction where you can tailor your response based on what your child is communicating. This is really important. And I know, as Catherine said earlier, it's not possible to limit passive screen time completely, but we can make it also more interactive. So even if our child is using screen time, we can make it more interactive. We can join in, ask questions, do some gross motor activities, some imitation, some singing songs, and all of that. The last point I want to talk about today is practicing goals recommended by your speech and language therapist at home. As Adel mentioned earlier, it's very important, and parents really play a huge role when it comes to their child's development. So yes, a child might learn a new skill at home, at the sessions, but it's very important to make sure that we are generalizing the skill at home or across different settings and environments. So how can we do that? I'll just give you a short example. For example, if your child is learning animals at the session during this period, what I can do while reading stories at home or while playing pretend play, I can add some animals, I can choose some animal books and talk more about animals. The child will get exposed to the vocabulary related to animals in more than one setting, and it will encourage him to use those words in a natural environment and a functional environment. So yes, the most important thing is consistency and repetition. The more you repeat words, the more you repeat the vocabulary in front of your child, the more he will be able to acquire it, understand it, and use it in his daily life. Small steps, but it will result in huge, huge differences in your child's communication. And that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Noor. Actually, one of the things that came to my mind when Noor was talking about the skills that a child would learn in a session that we need to, let's say, implement at home or everywhere, is it came to my mind one of the questions that we originally added is the foundational skills and the importance of foundational skills. So yeah, I think it's this question.
No, not this one, Adel.
This one.
Yes, this one. Yeah.
Yeah. Marek, you wanna go ahead?
Yeah, okay. So most parents ask us always why we don't practice writing in our sessions. So for example, we have Mariam, she's 5. They say that we came to therapy because Mariam can't write her name for school, but her therapist is working on her strength and animal walks, balance, and we don't understand. We want her to write, why aren't we are working on writing directly? And here comes the importance of foundational skills. For example, writing is a very complex skill where it has so many skills integrated together for us to be able to write. We do it daily, very naturally, so we don't think more about it. But writing needs higher executive functioning skills. It needs planning, it needs memory, it needs attention, and at the same time, it needs all the body muscles to be ready to work. For example, we need our core strength and shoulder stability to be able to sit. Our shoulder stability is the thing that help us in our fine motor skill and fine dexterity and to use our fingers and hands properly. And here comes also the fine motor skills and then our visual skills. So we need to work on all these foundational skills. We need to strengthen our core and shoulders to be able to sit still and sit properly for our fine motor, fine muscles to work. Then we need to prepare and practice our fine motor skills, our muscles strength and control to be able to hold the pencil and move the pencil properly. And in the same time, we need to work on the visual skills. So we can, for example, discriminate between the B and the D, to understand the spatial relation between the words and the letters, the lines. So you would find us practicing on coloring, drawing, tracing, but we're not writing. Um, and in the same time, we would be working on the kids' attention, ability to focus, and ability to plan and memorize. For example, visual sequential memory is important to remember the sequence of the images or the letters. This will help the kid to remember the sequence of the letters in one word when they are copying a sentence from the board in the class to the paper. So, in order for the kid to be ready to start writing, we as OTs, we need to work on all of these skills together. Once we work on them properly, all these skills will reflect on handwriting. So you would find us every 5, 6, 7 sessions. We would practice, or actually not practice, we would check the child's handwriting during our session once in a while, and we would see some improvement without even working on actually writing, because all of these skills integrated together to improve writing. But what also helps if we're working in a complex on a complex skill like writing is for you to practice at home. We would give you, for example, some exercises or some tips on how you should practice with the kid, how the kid should write on the line, how the proper letter formation should be. And then you can carry on and practice these things at home with your child while we are working on all of the other skills. This might help the child improve better and faster.
Yes. So the bottom line is, we're not, even though we're not working on writing by itself, it doesn't mean that we're not working on writing. So when we're working, like in the question, it mentions the animal walks and the balance. It's all foundational skills that would lead to enhancing the writing, and the writing would just improve by itself. And one important thing, which all of this would lead us right back into um, the underlying cause of why am I having difficulties with the writing, let's say, because maybe I'm having a weak core muscle strength, or maybe not enough shoulder stability, that the child is not focused while he's sitting down, the posture is not correct. This is why he's not able to write. So we need to look at the child again as a whole, and look at all the underlying causes. Do we have any questions to answer before we leave in the chat box? Thank you so much, everyone. Here we have the references from where we got our answers for the occupational therapy. Feel free to screenshot if you want to review anything. Here we have the references for the speech and language pathology. And if you want to screenshot anything. So yes, thank you all for coming and joining us today. Thank you for everything you're doing for your children. I know it's not an easy task on the parents, nor on even us, the therapists. We just need to collaborate, and collaboration between the therapist and the parent is the most important thing, just like we mentioned before. We're one team, and it genuinely makes all the difference. We're here for you whenever you want. You can always reach out to Intercare Health Center. And if you have any more questions, feel free um, to contact Intercare Health Center, ask for our emails, or maybe send your emails directly. Or if we're giving therapy to one of your children, of course, you already have our contact information. This is all for today. Thank you so much. Thank you, team leads, Noor, Catherine, Marah, Aisha. Thank you all for all your wonderful answers. And we will all see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.